Okay, hey everybody, welcome back. We are here for our final video of the season. We took a couple week break there, sort of unintentionally. Apparently, I forgot to upload the video from 2 weeks ago, and then we just didn't do one last week. But we're here to recap the fantasy playoffs. I'm going to start by congratulating our champion Shannon, who just dominated the entire season and continued into the off season. Um, I don't want to talk too much about the old weeks, but last week she put up 245 points in the semifinal match against Melissa. She more than doubled Melissa's points. So, this week it was a lot closer between you and her, Chad. But she definitely was deserving of a win based on the amount of points she scored this season. So, congrats
Yeah,
to her first year in the league, and she takes home the championship. So, very nice, Shannon. I should note that everybody has been paid out at this point. So, if you have not received your payment for some reason, just let me know. But it looks like they all went through. So. Um, all right, let's jump in here. We'll just recap real quick the quarterfinals and the semifinals. So quarterfinals, you and Shannon, or I'm sorry, Scott and Shannon had a bye, and then it was Melissa against myself, and then you against Ashley. Now that was a weird week. We're talking 2 weeks ago now, but that was such a low-scoring week. We already talked about this in the video that I didn't upload, but just to recap that, yeah, Melissa had 100 points. I had 97. Ashley had 99. You had a good week. You had the best week that I saw across multiple leagues with 144 points that week. So you beat Ashley. Melissa beat me by 4 points. And then obviously the two of you moved on to face Shannon and Scott in the semifinals. You took on Scott and you crushed him. You had 179 points last week. Real solid week. Shannon, obviously, we just talked about crushing Melissa with 245 points, which is crazy. And that leads us to our championship matchup between the two of you. Before we get into that, though, let's talk about our third and fourth place games. So obviously, with Melissa and Scott being knocked off last week in the semifinals, they were playing for third and fourth place this week, championship week, to take home those third and fourth place prizes. So Melissa came out ahead. She had a whopping 202 point game. So her and Shannon with monster games in the playoffs here. You don't usually see scores that high this late in the season because people are banged up and they're out and there's whatever. They're just tired, but it had some solid weeks here. So real quick, looking at the matchup between Melissa and Scott this week, I think the big name here was Jamar Chase, right, with 266 yards and 3 touchdowns. What's always funny to me is this always happens where these players will have like 95% of their production in like the first half, right? So you're like, oh man, the second half's going to be nuts. He's just going to blow up for another bajillion yards. I think he had in the first half, because you and I were talking about this, he had like 188 yards or something like in the first half. So he only got another, 12 and 66, like 78 yards in the second half, which is actually still a lot, really, when you think about it. But finished with 266 total, 70 points. Probably we had another 70 pointer this season. Do you remember who that was? What player? It was a wide receiver, I think. I just don't remember who it was.
T. Higgins.
No, he wasn't.
Who
He had a good
we
week
had?
last week,
We had a
but
70.
I thought we had a 70 this season, but maybe not. I could be
I don't
wrong.
think so.
Yeah, maybe not. I think I saw it was good enough for the fifth highest fantasy performance ever among players. So I like when they track stats like that. I don't know who number one is. It's probably like a Jerry Rice or somebody like that. One of those guys.
For fantasy?
Yeah, for fantasy. So Jamar has the fifth most fantasy points ever scored in a single week at fantasy. Again, I don't know who 1 through 4 are, but I'm sure it's some of those big names. Maybe Julio's up there. Julio had like a 300-yard game. I'm sure he's up
I
there.
think Julio is like 4 or
Yeah,
3.
he's got to be top 5 because, like I said, that 300-yard. He only had 1 touchdown in a game where he had 300 yards, but still pretty absurd. So obviously, Jamar was the real winner here. Najee with his best game of the season against Cleveland. He had almost 200 yards and a touchdown here and a couple catches. So great game by Najee. Najee's definitely going top 5 next season, right? Like no question. We've talked about this throughout the season, but
Well, doesn't it depend on who his quarterback is or no?
mm, I don't know because obviously they're going to
Because
want
their line sucks.
their line sucks. If they can improve that, I mean, I guess you're right. He could regress from here, but you still figure he's probably going to be a high draft pick simply because of the volume, right? I mean, in this game he had I think almost 30 carries. Yeah, he had 28 plus a couple catches, so he had over 30 opportunities in this game. He's their only running back, right? I mean, it's just the opportunities there. So, I mean, you got Jonathan Taylor, you got Derrick Henry, you got Eckler, you got Najee, right? Those are kind of top 4 running backs in my mind. I don't think you put Christian McCaffrey in that category. I think maybe Kamara. Kamara's probably still in that top 5. I think Dalvin Cook's out. I think Zeke's out. I think Christian McCaffrey's out of that top 5. I think those guys are
Zeke
just
is definitely out.
Zeke's definitely out. What's funny that I saw today? Zeke finished as the RB6 in half point PPR,
I believe
and
it.
that's where he was drafted, RB6. So he actually finished at his ADP. But if you drafted Zeke, you're probably disappointed.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny. He returned his value, but at the same time, you
Well,
don't.
it goes to show how thin running backs are then.
Yeah, exactly. And it also goes to show, like, okay, in our league, I remember JT took Zeke because he was a pick before me. He took Zeke at 5th overall. Think about all the running backs you could have had over Zeke that you would have preferred that came later, right? Like Eckler,
Probably Mixon.
Najee, Taylor. Well, I took Taylor right after. Mixon was after. I mean, there's 4 names right there that did way better than Zeke. So, and they all came after the fact. It was interesting to see. It said the best teams in the league this season were generally drafted like 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th, like in the draft position, just overall on average.
I believe it.
Because you drafted, where were you, 3rd?
Third, I think.
Yeah, 3rd. Okay. So
Wasn't Shannon like last or
yeah,
near the end?
she was really late. She may have taken 10th or 11th. I'm not sure. Um, so whatever. Anyways, looking back here, nobody else really on Melissa's roster did anything. Honestly, their team, her 200-point performance was carried mostly by Najee and Jamar. I mean, the two of them alone put up over 100 points. So, the other 7 members of her starting roster had to just put up another 100. Other side of the ball, Scott had a pretty good game at 144. That's a really respectable game here. You're going to win probably most weeks with that amount of points, except when you play against somebody with 200. So, DK finally had a good game here after many, many weeks of disappointment. I want to take a quick look here. Yeah, he hasn't had a good week since week 8, except for this one. So DK very disappointing this year. Obviously, that's got to do with Russell Wilson too, but kind of weird. There was a lot of these dudes that I was really excited about this year that really disappointed. Calvin Ridley, I mean, he disappointed for other reasons, but he wasn't that good when he was on the field.
Nope.
DK Metcalf, another good example. AJ Brown, AJ Brown had some really killer weeks. AJ Brown had a lot of really bad weeks.
A lot of weeks that killed you.
Yeah, so it's just tough.
There's a stat with him. Apparently, him and Cup are like tied with something, and you never would think that's true.
Yeah,
There's some weird stat that for this year, but their fantasy gap is huge. So
hmm.
I need to find it again. But it's
Yeah, I'd be
like
curious to know what that stat is. Okay, real quick here, Elijah Mitchell, solid game for Scott. He had to be, Cordero kind of fell off in the end, right, a little bit.
Cordell fell off. Really, what I think what happened is that they overworked him because I don't think he's
Mm.
young,
No, he's been in the league for
and
a few years, definitely.
he's never done 3 positions. I mean, that's a lot.
Hmm.
Receiver, running back. I think he did special teams.
Yeah, probably.
So, well, he's the kick returner. So, I
Hmm.
mean, I think that he got burnt out,
Yeah,
and they knew that.
yep, I can see that. So, I bring up Cordero's name because, we kind of talked about this in an earlier week, but kind of the waiver wire darlings of the year, it was Elijah Mitchell and Cordero, and I think Elijah Mitchell,
Oh, and Amon St. Brown.
oh, right, yeah, the Sun God. Yeah, he came on late, though. Like, it
Is
took
that
a
'cause of his
long
hair color?
time. No, because Amon-Ra is a sun god, Egyptian sun god. Uh, so,
Didn't know that.
yeah, they call him the sun god. Um, yeah, so he came on late. I was actually interested in him because he's a talented dude. He's on a crappy team, obviously. I held him at a couple points throughout the year, but he didn't come out until later. It's kind of funny. There was a couple of dudes that I was interested in at some point in the season, and I picked them up at points. I held them. Didn't really do anything because it was early, and then all of a sudden they made late season runs, and you
Yeah.
owned one of them, and that was Rashad Penny, and we'll talk about him in a little bit. But Amon Ra was definitely one of the other names here. But Elijah Mitchell, anyways, back to him real quick. He's been the games he's been in. He hasn't been very healthy this year, but that's always a problem for 49ers running backs. But in the games he has been healthy, he's been very good for fantasy. So be interesting to see how that running back situation shapes up next year because they're going to get Raheem Mostert back. Uh, I don't know. I don't know what happens there. There will be some running back with value next year on the 49ers. We just don't know who it is.
Always.
David
Always one.
Montgomery, solid game. All around. Scott, except for Nick Chubb, who only had 58 rushing yards. By the way, Nick Chubb went 7th, I believe. I think Scott took him right after me. So after I took Jonathan Taylor at 6 overall. So you want to talk about discrepancies there between picks. 6th and 7th pick, Jonathan Taylor versus Nick Chubb. Big differences here in fantasy production. So I think Nick Chubb very much falls out of first round draft pick next year. I mean, what do you think? Where does he go next year?
I, I would assume he still goes second. I mean, if you look at his games, he still finished. He had a lot of good
Yeah, he had
games.
a lot of good ones, but he also was hurt for some of them. He had a couple where he just killed you because he doesn't get any receptions. He just really he kills you in that
Yeah,
regard. And with Kareem Hunt, Kareem Hunt's been out, so you kind of expect more from him, and he still didn't. 5.8 points here against
Plus,
Pittsburgh, whose run defense has been really crappy lately. So
doesn't help. Baker's terrible, and he was
it
banged
does
up this
not, yeah.
entire year.
Yep. So maybe next year, I don't know. Nick Chubb's, yeah. I feel like as soon as the running back's been in the league for a couple years, because this was Nick Chubb's third year, fourth year.
Something
Like
like
to
that.
me, the wheels start falling off at that point, right? Like that doesn't sound like a long time, but for a running back who's getting 20 plus touches a game and getting hit every time, that's a long time. So he's in that category for me with like Zeke and company and Cook, where it's just like, are his best years behind him. So, but anyways, regardless, congrats to Melissa for third place. Congrats to Scott for fourth place. It's no easy feat getting either of those in a 12-man league. So well played to both of you guys. Let's talk about our championship matchup here, Chad, between you and Shannon. Now, this was a close one. You guys finished just over 5 points apart here. Very, very disappointing for you, I'm sure, to be that close. You'd rather get blown out, I'm sure. But unfortunately, she managed to get the win here. So I'll just talk about Shannon's team real quick. Again, just real solid performances. Devontae had a solid matchup. Devontae quietly has been very good this season. I would love to know where he actually finished. As far as
Probably
wide
three,
receivers go.
two,
Yeah, I mean,
three.
because you figure Cooper Cup's one. Debo's probably
That's what I was
top
thinking.
three as well. He may be second, maybe third. I'm not sure. But Devontae's got to be top three. I mean, who else would be in that conversation? Can you think of anybody? Because I can't.
Nope, Tyreek fell off.
Tyreek fell off big time. Ridley was up there, but he obviously went
Jefferson
away.
had some duds.
Yeah, Jefferson's probably top 6 or 7. Um, but yeah, it's got to be Devontae, top three for sure. So just quietly having a great season. He was probably drafted as the first or second wide receiver off the board. Oh, DeAndre Hopkins would have been drafted up there, but he's been hurt, so that's kind of a bust. Um,
Yeah, he's
so
not. I'm not taking him next year that high either.
yeah, he's starting to get kind of old too. Um, all these guys, I mean, they've been around for a while now, and I start to worry about that. Like how long can they be good? Obviously, as a wide receiver, you can be productive for a lot longer than a running back, but I do have some concerns there. So, anyways, Devontae has put up 30 plus points in 3 of his last 4 games, in 4 of his last 6 games. So it's pretty good. He definitely bounced back after some crappy games here. Eckler's been really solid all year. Another 20-point game. You can pretty much always count on him for 15 to 20.
CRB
Debo,
too, I
Debo
believe.
with a yeah, probably just because he's so consistent. Debo with a down game here, only 17 points. He's had some games like that, but for the most part, he's been very good. We talked about Antonio Brown just throwing his clothes off and storming out of the stadium. Um, T. Higgins, after a monster, man, he put up 51 points last week, and then he had 9 this week. That's because Jamar Chase had 250 yards, right? So it's hard to get.
Yep.
Do you know what Joe Burrow finished at? Because just doing some quick math, Jamar had 266 yards, and T. Higgins has 62. So right there, that's 328 yards of passing offense. So I assume Burrow threw for at least 400 or close to it. Do you know?
I think 3 or 400.
Yeah. So back-to-back monster games for Joe Burrow. He put up almost 1,000 yards in 2 weeks. It's kind of crazy
Yeah.
when you think about it. Um, Dak Prescott, he's been consistent. Probably not as good as I'm not sure where he was drafted. Let's take a quick look there. Fourth round. What do you think? Did Dak return his fourth round value? I guess so. I mean, what other quarterbacks went that high that were as good? Lamar wasn't. Kyler?
Josh
Maybe.
Allen
Josh
was
Allen.
before.
Josh Allen's probably still top 2.
He's
Top
number
2.
1.
He's number 1. Okay, I knew he was up there with Brady because I think Brady's up there too. Or he was until maybe very recently. So, good game from Shannon's guys there. Okay, you want to talk about your team?
Sure. Um, let's see. I think we're talking about the dude. I think he was the highest besides Jamar this week was Rashad Penny. He just, I mean, that was the matchup you wanted against the Lions, and he
Yeah.
absolutely torched them.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
170 yards. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, Cooper Cup. doing. I mean, a 20-point floor. I mean, he really hits it
Yeah.
every single week. So
It's funny. Like again, I mentioned it before. You're kind of disappointed in this week from Cooper Cup, right? When he only gets you 21 points, but that's phenomenal.
yeah. Well, what's crazy is that I thought he would feast on Baltimore, but
Yeah.
they. I don't know what happened with that game. The Baltimore defense wanted to be good for some reason. Damien Harris. Oh man, if he didn't hurt his hammy, they were
Mm,
blowing out the Jags. I mean, 50-10. That has to be the biggest 40. That's a 40-point difference. That has to be the
yeah.
biggest this year. That's absurd. But before he got injured, 18 points is fine. Herbert with barely over 20 points. Not again. I watched that game. He didn't look great in that one. That's really it. Oh, Chicago's defense with
Oh
21
yeah,
points.
yeah, solid game there. Yeah, it's really it sucks because you look at your lineup and you see all these places where you feel like you should have gotten those extra 5 points, right? Like Justin
Oh my
Herbert
god.
probably should have had another touchdown, or Cooper Cup. Look, he almost had 100 yards. Like there's another 3 points. One more catch, he's probably at the. One more catch is a point for the catch and 3 point bonus for the 100 yards. Boom, 4 more points right there. AJ Brown with 6 points. Like you're disappointed there. Dalvin Cook 4 points against Green Bay. Disappointed there. I mean, that really sucked because they lost Kirk Cousins, so you knew it
Yeah.
was going to be a struggle from the get go. You didn't think it would be that much of a struggle though. How many
Nope.
carries did he have in this game? Let's
Like
see.
9, I think.
Only 9. Wow. So I
Yeah,
guess they were
9.
down early, and they went away from the run. I'm not sure why you would go away from
They had
your
to.
first or second best player on your team. Um, but yeah, like you said, you have to. So yeah, Rashad Penny absolutely had a monster game here. 170 yards, couple touchdowns. So like 6 or 7 weeks ago, I went back and looked because I frequent the Reddit fantasy football stuff, and there was a thread at some point about the time that what's his face went down. Who was the other running back? The guy, their starter that got hurt.
Chris Carson.
Yeah, Chris Carson. Thank you. So not too long after he went down, and it was kind of Alex Collins, and then Rashad Penny was coming back, and all this crap. I was like, what about Rashad Penny? Like he has flashed in years past. He's always hurt, but he's looked good at times. And everybody's like, nah, it's gonna be Alex Collins. Alex Collins is so good. He's the man. And I'm thinking to myself as like Ravens fans, Alex Collins was only kind of good like 4 years ago for the Ravens. Like you gonna tell me
Yeah.
that Alex Collins is better than first round pick Rashad Penny? And
I
Rashad,
forgot we had Alex Collins.
yeah, for like a year or two. And he was actually pretty good for us, but a lot of running backs are. So, 3 of the last 4 weeks, Rashad Penny's been really good. And so, like, screw you, everybody that said Rashad Penny wasn't going to be good, because he was. But, yeah, 40 points from him. That's awesome. 21 points from your defense. You can't beat that at all.
Nope.
But, yeah, like I said, you just see all these places. Like, Gabe Davis had a down game. And then you mentioned it before. You had you left some points on your bench that like Darnell Mooney. You wouldn't
Oh,
have that like that.
I
You
didn't.
swap
I
him
didn't
in
switch him.
for Gabe. Like you said, that was the switch you made, right? You put in Davis
Two
for
minutes
Mooney,
before
right?
1 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's tough when it's like you can just always think about the what if. I had
That's
a
right.
single decision. If I had made it differently in my quarterfinal match, I would have beaten Melissa and moved on to the semifinals. Now I wouldn't have beaten Shannon by any means in the semifinal matchup, but um, just the one decision would have made the difference there. So it always sucks for that to happen. But you both had really solid weeks here. You both had really solid seasons. At the end of the day, you were
Yeah.
first and second in points scored. So overall, very very good. Congratulations to you both. Um, and now it'll be on to next year, and we'll see what happens then. So I'm not sure if we have anything else really to add here. Trying to see if there's anything else I want to talk about at season end. Like I said, everybody's
Also,
in. Oh, go ahead.
I assume we're gonna. Well, I assume you're gonna send a text later next year, whatever.
Yeah.
But are we doing? I assume it's starting next year. It's based on where you finish. That'll determine where you draft next year, like where you get to pick.
Yeah, so that was the original plan, right? That's what we established at the beginning of the season. But I've been having second thoughts about that lately, and the only reason because it would be either that or auction draft. I'm thinking of moving the entire league to an auction draft, um, simply because everybody
That
that's
would be
done auction
interesting.
drafts says they're better. Only thing I have to consider there is I did establish at the beginning of the season that the draft order would be determined based on reverse finish, so it kind of screws over the people that finish at the end. Um, because obviously they then don't have that advantage next year. Only way to really
Right.
make it up to them, the people who finished last this year can nominate players for the auction. Like, they would get the first nomination. I guess we could do that, but in auction, there's really no benefit, right? It's all about how
Yeah.
much you're going to bid. There's no draft advantages. There's no position advantages. Like,
Right.
first pick, 12th pick. There's nothing. There's nothing like that. So, which is kind of why I want to go to the auction draft format. Also, I think it'd be more fun. Yeah, either way, one change we're making next year too is we're going to put a time limit on the draft because they take too long. Not everybody has 4 hours to devote to this
Yeah.
or wants to. And some people definitely abuse the soft 2-minute timer that we keep.
Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so we're gonna either implement a timer with the snake draft or we're gonna go to an auction draft. And I really kind of what do you think about that? We've talked about that before, but
I mean, you know me, I would be down.
mm,
I just
I think it
I
would
don't
be
know,
more fun.
it'd be fun. I think people would need to like actually research it and understand how to actually like I guess manage your money because you're given a certain amount. It's like you need to build a full roster, so you need to like
Yeah,
actually understand who's worth what and
yeah.
who be worth 50 versus 20, or it's like that's pretty huge.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be a little more complicated, so I got to factor that in too because we have some more casual people here, that don't follow
Yeah.
players and stuff. So I don't want to scare anybody away at the same time. So, but that is on the table as a possible change for next year. If not, if we do keep it snake draft, then yeah. So last place will be, and I probably need to memorialize that. Let me see here. Does it give us the final standings? Um,
We can just do it based. Oh, that's right. This changes everything.
yeah. So like, okay. So here we go. Okay, it does. Yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah,
good with this. So
Shannon,
Shannon,
me.
you, Melissa, Scott. Okay, so maybe I'll take a picture of this or something before the end of the night here. But so Jimmy's
Yeah,
no, James
let's
isn't
do
last. No,
Chris.
it's got to be Chris. Chris would be last. So I don't like. They've ordered this based on these like the constellation brackets, which I don't like. So I'll have to probably reorder this myself, right? Like because Chris should be
So,
a 12th.
so you want to do week 16 or 15, the last regular season
Yeah, I'll
standing?
probably have to go, but yeah, that's what I'll have to do. Is I'll probably like
Because
1 to 6
has
here
to be
are
last.
fine. I think for 1 to 6, us that made the playoffs, I'm good with those. But then I need to go back and look at week 14 or whatever to get the 7th through 12th rankings.
Because Kate shouldn't be 7 at 4 and 10.
No, she should be second to last, and then James third. Whatever. So okay, so I'll find a way to sort of finalize that so that it carries over. But um, yeah, so we'll see about that. Otherwise, I don't think there's going to be a ton of changes next year. I already talked about one for sure. Is we're gonna drop a bench spot. We're gonna go down to 5 bench, one IR. Just because with 12 team, the waiver wire is really thin. I think it makes it a little more competitive if there's less spots on your roster because you can't just store
Yep.
anybody you want. You got to really think about who you want. Um,
Actually, make people spend fab too.
yeah, that too, right? I mean, that's a good point. We have people who literally, I mean, Shannon didn't spend like $1 over Fab until like a week ago, right, or 2 weeks ago, something
Yeah.
like that, until her first week of the playoffs. So, and she didn't have to because her team was healthy. Like the team she drafted was healthy and strong. She never needed to spend any Fab. She never needed to bid on any of those players, um, which is fine. It's gonna be that's fantasy sometimes, right? It's just the luck of the draw with injuries and stuff. My team got obliterated in the last 5 weeks of the season, so sometimes it's hard to come back from that without using the waiver wire. But anyways, yeah, I think that covers everything. I can't think of anything else. I'll probably send a text too because I know not everybody will watch this, so I'll send a quick text summarizing some of this stuff. But yeah, I think that's it. Anything else, Chad, for the to cap off the 2021 fantasy football season?
I guess to thank everyone for playing.
Yes, thank you all. And I don't know about you, but I kind of experienced a little bit of fantasy burnout. Do you get that? Have you gotten to that point in fantasy where you get burnt out a little bit towards the end, or you like
No,
a whole
I'm just shocked.
ride?
I'm shocked it ended this fast. I felt crazy thing that's all over. I literally just remember us drafting,
I know it.
and
It
now we're
feels like it was
done.
yesterday. I mean, I remember like every week we were like, "Wow, it's already week 3. It's already week 7. Like now
Yep.
it's week 18." Like it's nuts. I mean, there's 3 weeks. There are 3 months. Just boom, 3
I mean,
months,
I'm burnt
four
from
months.
dealing with all those injuries and like
Yeah.
you know losing and whatnot. But
It's
honestly, I love fantasy
stressful. I do
football.
too.
It
Like
is.
come the summertime, we get all hyped up for it. I love it. Like
Yep.
I'm ready for it. But
The mock drafts and all that.
yeah, the mock drafts, I love it. But then like by week 11, 12, 13, even like you and I made the playoffs pretty much across the board in our leagues. Even in the playoffs, I'm like, man, I'm just kind of ready for this to be over. Like, I got a chance at winning, and I'm just like, okay, I'm kind of done.
But that's not me.
Yeah, I used to
Uh,
not be that way, but
I go for the money.
oh,
I'm
me
like,
too,
there
me
it
too.
is.
Like,
That's fine.
I don't not try, but I get tired of the rinse and repeat weekly effort, and like the weekly
Yeah.
stress of, who's gonna get on the COVID list this week, who's gonna get hurt this week, who's gonna just randomly not do what they're supposed to do this week.
COVID's the big thing. I feel like that just took a hit on
Yeah, the
everything.
past like 5 weeks, especially. I mean, there's been so many people going on the COVID list that have missed games. Um, that's been brutal this year, maybe more so than last
Yep.
year. Because last year, a lot of times when you had teams with these sort of breakouts, they would postpone the games, and then you wouldn't
Yeah.
have, you player would come back.
Yeah.
But anyways, okay, all right, everybody, we will talk to you all next year. Have a good summer, spring, winter, next three
Yep.
seasons. All right, peace.